My wife cheated on me with her boss, took half of our $500, $0 savings, and now she's suing me for custody while I just found out she secretly transferred our property to her sister. I don't know who I can trust anymore. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, and honestly, I still can't believe how everything unraveled so fast. It's like one day I was living my normal life, and the next I was staring at a mountain of betrayal I never saw coming. The craziest part, it all started with a few small signs I brushed off at first, but looking back, they were there all along, just waiting to explode. My wife Jessica and I had been together for about 8 years. We got married young, both of us chasing that ideal of a perfect life, good jobs, a nice house, a couple of dogs. We had $500,000 saved up, mostly from her work bonuses and my side gigs. We were comfortable, or so I thought. Jessica was always a bit bitchy, quick to lie when it suited her, but she was also charming enough that I kept forgiving her little slips. I guess I wanted to believe she was the woman I married, the woman I loved. It all started to seem off about 3 months ago. Jessica became more secretive with her phone, hiding it when I came into the room, texting late at night and brushing off my questions. I noticed she was spending more time out of town for business trips, but she'd come back with a weird attitude, avoiding my eyes, acting defensive if I asked about her meetings. She would say things like, "You're overthinking," or "It's just work, relax," but I could tell she was hiding something. Then I noticed money was disappearing from our accounts. Small amounts at first, 200 here, $300 there. I thought maybe she was paying bills or buying gifts, but her explanations didn't add up. She'd say she was just making some investments or that she was helping her sister with some expenses. I didn't think too much of it at the time, but something gnawed at me. Why was she so secretive? Why was she lying about where the money was going? One night, I decided to check her phone when she was asleep. I know, trust is supposed to be a thing, but I was desperate for some clarity. I found messages from her boss, Mark, that made my stomach turn. They weren't just work-related. There were flirty texts, some suggestive, talking about meeting up after hours, and even a few explicit photos. My heart sank. Jessica had been screwing her boss. I couldn't believe it. The woman I married, the mother of my kids, was cheating on me with her boss. What hit me even harder was that the messages weren't just about sex. They were about plans, about her leaving me, about her wanting to start fresh with Mark. She was telling him she was tired of the life we had, that she felt trapped. I felt a surge of anger, betrayal, and deep sadness all at once. How long had this been going on? Had she been lying to me the entire time? I felt like I didn't even know her anymore. She always told me she loved me, that I was her everything, but her actions said otherwise. I didn't confront her that night. I just sat there staring at the screen, feeling numb. My mind was racing. I thought about the house, our savings, the future I thought we had. And then I remembered the money missing from our account. I pulled out the statements and saw that a significant chunk, about $250, $0, had been transferred to her sister's account. I couldn't believe it. She had secretly transferred property, assets, everything I thought was safe to her sister without telling me. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? The next day I confronted her. I was furious, trembling with rage and heartbreak. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money transfers, the lies. Her face twisted into a mask of guilt and anger. She spat back at me, calling me paranoid, saying I was imagining things, that I was crazy for accusing her of cheating. Everything, even the explicit texts, claiming they were just work emails or harmless flirtation. She said I was overreacting, that I was insecure, and that I had no right to question her loyalty. But I knew the truth. I had seen enough. The pain hit me like a punch in the gut. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had been screwing her boss, taking our savings and secretly transferring assets to her sister. I felt like my entire world had shattered. I was furious but also devastated. I didn't know who she was anymore. I didn't know who I was anymore. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about losing everything I worked for, everything I believed in. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had happened. I realized that I needed to make some serious decisions. How do you rebuild trust after something like this? Can you? Or do you just cut your losses and move on? I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. After that confrontation, everything changed. Jessica kept denying everything, but I had enough proof. Those texts, the bank statements, the transfer records. Still, she played the victim, crying and saying I was crazy, that I was accusing her of something she didn't do. That made me even angrier. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she pretend she was innocent when I'd seen what she was doing behind my back? I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. I started digging deeper, talking to a lawyer, trying to understand my legal options. Turns out she transferred our property to her sister, who, by the way, is a real piece of work herself, without telling me. It was a calculated move to hide assets, and I knew I had to act fast before she drained everything. The lawyer told me I had grounds for a lawsuit, but more than that, I needed to gather evidence. I spent the next few days going through bank records, emails, anything that could prove her betrayal and her financial manipulations. Meanwhile, Jessica kept up her act, pretending everything was fine, even throwing a few barbed comments my way. She'd say I was overreacting, that I was paranoid. She accused me of not trusting her, that I was jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I knew she was lying, hiding something, and that she was planning to run away with whatever she could get. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying to keep my sanity while everything around me was falling apart. One day, I found out she was planning to take the kids to her sister's house for the weekend. That's when I decided I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let her just walk away with everything, especially not with our kids caught in the middle. I contacted a private investigator, and within days, I had footage of her and Mark sneaking around, meeting late at night, even going into a hotel together. Seeing that footage was like a punch to the stomach. It confirmed everything I already suspected. She was cheating, lying, and scheming behind my back. That same day, I also discovered that she had been secretly transferring our property, our house, our savings to her sister. I found the legal documents, the deeds, everything. She had forged signatures, manipulated the system, and made sure I wouldn't have access anymore. I was furious. All our hard work, all those years saving up, gone in a matter of months. And for what? To be with her boss, to leave me with nothing. The rage boiled inside me. I was ready to fight for everything I had left, and I knew I had to act quickly before she managed to hide or sell anything else. Deciding what to do next was a blur. I filed for an emergency injunction to freeze her accounts and prevent her from transferring any more assets. I contacted my lawyer again, who warned me that she might try to dismiss everything or hide her money even further. I also started preparing for a custody battle. The thought of losing my kids, of her taking them away while she ran off with her new lover, was unbearable. I knew I had to stand my ground, despite feeling betrayed on every level. In the meantime, Jessica was still acting like the innocent victim, telling everyone I was the one who was crazy, accusing her of cheating, of stealing. She even had the nerve to call me controlling, jealous, and paranoid. It was infuriating. How could she lie so convincingly? How could she turn the tables and make me look like the bad guy? I felt like I was losing my mind, caught in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But I wasn't going to let her win. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I was determined to get justice. I started documenting everything: phone calls, texts, bank transactions, her meetings, anything that could help me prove her guilt. I also reached out to friends and family trying to get support, but honestly, it was hard. Most of them just told me I should forgive her, that maybe she was going through something. But I knew better. This wasn't just a fling or a moment of weakness. This was calculated, planned, and deeply hurtful. Every day since the discovery has been a roller coaster of emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, and even moments of hope that I could somehow fix this. But deep down, I know I can't fix her lies or her betrayal. I just want to protect what's left of my life, my kids, and my dignity. The worst part is, I still love her, or at least I did. But now I'm not sure if that's enough. The trust is shattered, and I'm left standing here, trying to piece together what's left of my world. By this point, I was deep into the mess. Everything was spiraling out of control faster than I could keep up with. The legal battle was beginning to take shape, but Jessica was fighting dirty. She kept denying everything, claiming I was making things up that I was paranoid, that I was just jealous because she was so much better than me. She had a way of spinning her lies that made it seem like I was losing my mind. Meanwhile, she was out there transferring assets, hiding money, and plotting her escape with Mark. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies and betrayal. Every time I thought I had a handle on things, another bombshell dropped. I found out she had secretly opened new bank accounts, transferring more of our savings into accounts I had no access to. She'd been funneling money into her sister's account, claiming it was for family emergencies, but I knew better. I'd caught her in so many lies now that I didn't trust anything she said. And the worst part, I was starting to question my own judgment. Was I too paranoid? Was I reading too much into her behavior? But then I'd find more proof, undeniable and clear. One night I decided I needed to see her in her element, so I followed her to a hotel where she and Mark had been meeting. I waited outside in the car, heart pounding, watching her go inside. When she finally came out, I snapped a few photos. Seeing her with him, close, intimate, made my stomach turn. I couldn't believe I'd been living with a woman capable of this kind of deception. It was like my entire life was a lie. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see it coming. But the truth was I was blind. I had trusted her maybe too much. The next day, I sat down with my lawyer again. We drafted a motion to freeze her accounts, to prevent her from transferring or selling any more property. I also filed for a temporary custody order, knowing I had to act fast before she took the kids out of state or convinced them to turn against me. I felt a mixture of rage and helplessness. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, to make her admit everything. But I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I focused on gathering more evidence, more proof that she was planning to run away with her lover and leave me with nothing. Meanwhile, Jessica was still playing the victim. She told everyone that I was the bad guy, jealous, controlling, insecure. She claimed I was making her life hell, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do. But I knew better. I'd seen the texts, the transfers, the hotel receipts. There was no denying the truth anymore. Yet she kept spinning her web of lies, trying to turn everyone against me. It was a sickening feeling, watching her manipulate everyone, including the kids, into thinking I was the villain. I'd never felt so alone in my life. I was fighting for my reputation, my money, and most of all, my children. The thought of her taking them away, especially after all this betrayal, was unbearable. I had to do whatever it took to keep her from doing that. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her whereabouts and activities. Every day, I was getting new pieces of the puzzle. It was exhausting, but I couldn't stop. I had to prepare for the worst. One night, I sat in my living room, scrolling through all the evidence I'd collected. The pictures, the bank statements, the messages, everything pointed to one thing. Jessica was planning to leave, to start a new life with Mark, and she was willing to destroy everything we built together to do it. I felt a cold fury rise inside me. How could she do this? How could she betray me, our kids, everything we had? I wondered how I'd ever trust anyone again after this. The person I thought I knew was just a facade, someone capable of lying, cheating, and manipulating her way out of her life with me. I also started to realize the extent of her deception. She'd been secretly transferring assets, even trying to hide some of the money in offshore accounts. I found evidence of a new property she'd bought behind my back, registered under her sister's name. She was planning her escape, and I was just a pawn in her game. The betrayal cut so deep that I started questioning everything: my judgment, my worth, my future. I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust again, or if I'd be forever by what she did. Despite all this, I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her see me broken. I had to fight for my rights, for my kids, and for whatever dignity I had left. I reached out to a divorce attorney and started building my case. I also began talking to a counselor, trying to process what was happening. It was a slow, painful process, but I knew I couldn't let her win. I wasn't going down without a fight. I had to protect what was mine and, more importantly, figure out how to keep going after everything I'd lost. By now, the situation had escalated beyond what I ever imagined possible. Jessica's lies had become so convoluted that I wasn't even sure what was real anymore. She continued to deny everything, even as I handed her proof, screenshots, bank records, legal documents, that painted a different picture. She'd spin stories about how I was paranoid, how I was making everything up because I didn't want her to be happy. It was exhausting trying to argue with someone who was so good at twisting the truth to fit her narrative. I knew I had to act fast. The lawyer filed the paperwork for the injunction, freezing her accounts, stopping her from transferring any more property. But Jessica wasn't about to go quietly. She started playing the victim, claiming I was abusive, controlling, and jealous. She even went as far as accusing me of infidelity, which, considering what I'd uncovered, was laughable. But her words carried weight because she knew how to manipulate people. She always had. I kept hearing from friends and family that I should just let it go, that I was overreacting, that I should focus on the kids. But I couldn't. I knew the truth and I had to fight for it. One afternoon, I found out she was planning to take the kids to her sister's house for a couple of days. That was the moment I realized I needed to act decisively. I reached out to my lawyer again and we moved to file for an emergency custody hearing. I couldn't let her just take the kids away while she was secretly planning her escape. The court granted a temporary order, giving me custody until we could have a full hearing. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I felt a small sense of relief, even as I knew the battle was far from over. Meanwhile, I kept gathering evidence. I hired a private investigator to follow her and Mark, to see where she was going, who she was meeting. The footage I received was eye-opening. Jessica and Mark sneaking around, meeting at secret locations, even going to a hotel together. Seeing her in those moments made my stomach churn. It confirmed everything I'd suspected. She was actively planning to run away with her lover, leaving me with nothing. The betrayal cut so deep that I wondered if I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. But it wasn't just about the affair. It was about the money, the property, the future we had built. I found out she transferred our house into her sister's name, without my knowledge or consent. She'd forged signatures, manipulated legal documents, and hidden assets in offshore accounts. It all felt like a nightmare. I was losing control, losing my life, and I didn't know how to stop it. The more I uncovered, the more I realized she'd been planning this for months. It was calculated, cold, and ruthless. I started to question everything, my judgment, my decisions, even myself. How did I miss the signs? How could I have trusted her after all this? The emotional toll was immense. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly broken. Every thought was consumed by her lies and her schemes. I'd loved her, I'd fought for us, and now I was left with nothing but a pile of shattered trust. It felt like I was trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces, knowing I'd never see the full picture again. Despite all this, I refused to give up. I knew I had to fight for my rights, for my kids, for whatever dignity I had left. I worked with my lawyer to prepare for the upcoming court hearings. I also reached out to some close friends who told me to stay strong, to focus on the kids, and to keep pushing forward. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without consequences. I had to stand tall, even if inside I felt like I was crumbling. The hardest part was accepting that I might lose her, that our marriage was over, and that I might never get the trust back. But I also knew I had to protect what was mine, my home, my savings, my future. I realized that this wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Justice for the years I spent loving her, trusting her, building a life with her. Now I had to find a way to rebuild myself from the wreckage she left behind. I kept telling myself this would get better, even when every part of me wanted to give up. I had to fight for my kids, for my dignity, and for whatever hope was left. The court date finally arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. Jessica showed up looking polished, pretending to be the innocent victim, as if all her lies hadn't come crashing down around her. Mark was nowhere in sight, but I knew he was lurking behind the scenes, probably watching her every move. The courtroom was tense, and I could feel everyone's eyes on us. My lawyer presented all the evidence, texts, bank statements, the property transfer documents, the hotel footage. Jessica's face went pale when she realized how exposed she was. She tried to deny everything, claiming I was stalking her, that I was trying to ruin her reputation out of jealousy. She said she was just trying to protect her family from my accusations, but the judge wasn't buying it. My lawyer argued convincingly that Jessica had been systematically hiding assets, cheating on me with her boss, and planning to leave with the kids and our money. The judge listened carefully, then made a ruling. She ordered Jessica to return the property into my name, freeze her accounts, and restricted her from removing the children from the state without my consent. It was a huge victory, but I knew this wasn't the end. Jessica's attorneys immediately filed an appeal, and I could tell she was already planning her next move. She looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. This woman was dangerous, and I had to stay vigilant. The court also set a date for the full custody hearing, which I knew would be even more intense. I was determined to fight for my kids, no matter how much she tried to manipulate the system. In the meantime, I started to rebuild my life. I hired a counselor to help me process everything I'd been through. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the loss of trust. It was crushing. I also found some solace in talking to friends who had gone through similar situations. They told me to focus on my kids, to stay strong, and to keep moving forward. I knew they were right. I couldn't let her win by tearing me down completely. Jessica was still trying to control the narrative. She continued to play the victim to anyone who would listen, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation out of jealousy and bitterness. She told her family I was abusive, controlling, and unfit to be a father. It was all lies, but I knew I had to prepare for the inevitable smear campaign. I documented everything: my interactions with the kids, my efforts to keep things civil, even her aggressive behavior. I wanted to make sure I had a record of everything, just in case. As the days went by, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The legal victory was a step, but I knew Jessica was capable of anything to get her way. Her manipulative side was still very much in play. I kept my guard up and focused on staying steady. I also started to think about the future, how I could rebuild my life, regain my confidence, and maybe someday trust again. But right now, I just wanted to get through the custody battle and protect my children from her influence. Every night, I'd lie awake, replaying everything, trying to make sense of it all. How could she do this? How could she betray me, our family, and then try to spin it into something it was? The pain was still fresh, but I knew I had to be strong for myself, for my kids. I promised myself I wouldn't let her destroy everything I'd worked so hard for. I'd fight for what's right and do whatever it takes to get through this nightmare. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was determined not to let her win. I had to keep going for us. The custody hearing finally settled, and I managed to secure a more stable arrangement for the kids, at least for now. Jessica's attempts to manipulate the system kept coming, but I stayed vigilant, making sure every move she made was documented. I knew she was still scheming, still trying to spin lies, but I also knew I had enough evidence to fight her if she tried to take everything away. The judge's ruling was clear. I was awarded primary custody, with supervised visits for Jessica and strict restrictions on her ability to move the children out of state without my approval. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to give me some peace of mind. Living through this ordeal changed me. I learned that trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. Jessica's betrayal cut so deeply that I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. But I also realized something else: how resilient I could be. I'd been knocked down, battered by lies and deception, but I found strength I never knew I had. I spent months rebuilding my life, focusing on my kids, and healing from the emotional scars she left behind. I learned to be cautious, to question more, but also to trust my instincts again. Looking back, I see how naive I was to think that love alone could keep a relationship alive. Jessica's actions proved that sometimes people hide who they really are behind a mask of charm and lies. I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also forgive myself for that. What matters now is that I'm moving forward. I've started working on myself, therapy, reconnecting with friends, and trying to find happiness outside of the chaos. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I won't let it define me. One thing I've learned is that money, trust, and loyalty are fragile things. Jessica's greed and betrayal showed me how quickly everything can fall apart when those things are compromised. I'm now more cautious with my finances, more aware of the people around me, and more determined to protect what's mine. I've also come to realize that revenge isn't worth it. What's more important is justice, peace, and moving on. Holding on to anger only keeps you stuck in the past. I've chosen to focus on the future, however uncertain it may be. Now I look at my children and feel a renewed sense of purpose. They're my reason to keep going, to rebuild, and to trust again. I hope someday I can look back at this nightmare and see it as a chapter I survived, not the end of my story. I want to teach them that even in the darkest moments, there's a way to find light. That betrayal doesn't have to break you, but can instead make you stronger. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts. Gather evidence if you have to. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and your kids. Sometimes the truth needs a voice, and justice takes persistence. Most of all, do lose sight of who you are. Love, loyalty, and honesty are worth fighting for. I may have lost a lot, but I gained clarity about what really matters. And in the end, that's what will carry me through whatever comes next.